We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick. My name is Kirk Henderson. You are joining Josh, Bo, and I at about 10:25 on October 31st, which happens to be Halloween. The Dallas Mavericks just lost to the Houston Rockets at home, the start of a 5-game homestand, 108-102. Josh, how you doing?
Doing okay. Thought this, I'll just be upfront with everyone that, trick or treat. I got a little one. So I missed basically the first 3 quarters. I watched the fourth, which apparently was the best. If I had to pick a quarter, I got lucky and picked the best one to watch, because I did hear some of the first half and some of the third quarter on the radio as I was driving home to and from trick or treating. So I guess I lucked out by watching the best quarter of the 3, but still it wasn't enough for the Mavericks to win. So I'm going to be relying on you for like the first 3 quarters. And I know you didn't get to watch as much as maybe you would have liked, but was it as ugly as it looked in the first half at times?
Let me be clear.
Uh-oh.
Barack Obama voice. Let me be clear. This is the point in the podcast where some loser asshole clips whatever 2-minute segment I do here. And it's like, look at Kirk being mean. Kirk is a big, mean guy. Oh my God, Kirk said a mean thing about the player that I liked. Guys, here's the thing. When you go to the NBA Finals, I expect a great deal from you, particularly when you actually, in my opinion, improve the roster. Okay? The Dallas Mavericks have improved their roster. They have started the season. They are now 3-2. They have played in 20 quarters of basketball, maybe 2.5 decent quarters of basketball. But they're ahead. They're ahead of the count. Kirk, why are you mad? Why are you mad? Well, it's a waste of my fucking time to watch elements of what this team threw out there tonight. There is a lack of focus from the entire roster for pretty much everyone not named Kyrie Irving, to the point to where the Mavericks spent a significant portion of this game down 20. I love Luka Doncic. I spend more time and have liked him longer than you. I promise. It's just a statistical likelihood. Knew who he was when he was 16. I'm a weirdo. That's the sort of thing that I do with basketball. I follow basketball. I knew who the good guy was because the Mavericks signed Harrison Barnes, and I was like, holy fucking shit, we're going to be bad. It's time to go watch basketball. Watch this guy for years. He is capable of such magical basketball. And frankly, he has been bad. He has been bad. He has bitched at the refs, and it's slowly gotten worse as he's been more frustrated with his play. He will be fine. Okay? He's too good to be this weird. Some of the things that he did in the first 2.5 quarters of this game were beyond gross. His decision-making, his talking to the refs, the things that he chose to do were a big part of why the Mavericks ended up in a 20-0 hole. But the thing, Josh, is he wasn't alone. Do you have the box score pulled up?
I do have the box score pulled up.
How many offensive rebounds did the Houston Rockets get?
They had 18.
Do you know how fucking hard that is?
It's a lot of offensive rebounds.
18 offensive rebounds. That's where the team, as a collective unit, Jason Kidd needs to go back to the old shell drill where you put one of those weird bubble things on the basket, go 4v4, and make these guys learn how to box one another out again. Some of the rebounds that this team was getting, it was insane. Okay? It's just like Lively. I love Lively. Lively's our future. Just is. When he plays a bad game, the Mavericks lose. Is kind of what it comes down to through 5 games this season. And he played a pretty poor game. Gafford, how many rebounds did those two guys have together?
They combined for 4 in 30 minutes.
4 total rebounds?
Wait, hold on. 4. Oh, I'm sorry. I shortchanged them. 6. 6
total rebounds.
Yes.
Guys. Stop sucking. That's sorry. I get that. And let's be clear. The Rockets are a frustrating team to play against because they are wildly athletic. Amin Thompson is insane. Albert Sengun, whatever the fuck his name is.
Albert
is the kind of player you hate to play against because he's just the guy in pickup who's constantly nudging, pushing, making the kind of like the extra hustle thing that drives you crazy on defense while also being the kind of guy on offense who can just sort of wiggle his way to the goal. All right. This was such a maddening performance from the Dallas Mavericks for a team that has through 5 games, you sort of hoped that they as a collective unit would wake up and play a really, really good game. Hasn't done it. Fan123, noted dipshit in our chat, says, quote, "This is a very bad roster." No, it's not. Shut the fuck up. They're playing bad. That's what they're doing. They're playing bad. The team is good, and they're playing so far beneath themselves right now that everyone needs to go look in the mirror and figure out why they're doing this. They should be embarrassed. That's what that's what I took away from this game. I'm watching this game trick-or-treating, and I'm showing it to one of the other dads who's with me, and you're just watching around and you watch the I don't know, it's like a rebound that goes out to the 12-foot range, and you see 2 Mavericks kind of doing the chase down thing. They should be disgusted with themselves because unlike what some of our chat says, they are not bad. They are playing bad. And, as much as I like to rag on Jason Kidd, he was calling timeouts. He was doing stuff. He was getting into the refs because there was an earlier comment about how, hey, how many games were we going to go where we're on the other side of the free throw disparity? Well, I'll tell you what, the way you do that is to actually attack. The Mavericks are not attacking. And Kyrie was attacking. I pretty much want to put Kyrie in his own special place where I think Kyrie played a good game. Klay Thompson didn't get the ball enough, but Klay is so poor on defense. It's kind of hard to struggle with. Luka is the alpha and the omega of how this team goes, and he just needs to get it together. And again, I know I'm talking a lot because I saw the game, most of the game, and you didn't. The fourth quarter, once Luka picked up that 5th foul, he looked like a defensive savant. He played fantastic basketball in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah, he played pretty well. The one thing I'll say, there's a lot of places I could jump off there because I'm looking at the box score and thinking about it. I've got 4 different talking points I want to hit on. But I think with Luka, since we're talking about Luka, the one thing I'll say is you're right. The fourth quarter was great. But the one thing I know, I only watched 1 quarter. The complaining was off the charts tonight. And I don't know if it killed them in the first half, because again, I didn't watch. He did seem to save a lot of it for, like, I didn't see him getting lost in transition because he was ref complaining, but he was on them every moment on the floor. And it was like, this was, in terms of, without getting a technical, I don't know if I've seen him on the refs more in a game where he didn't get a technical foul. Like, it was, and to me, that shows part of the he's obviously frustrated. He had 5 fouls. He doesn't usually get close to fouling out in a game. So obviously he was frustrated. He's frustrated with his start. And I thought like, I was watching that fourth quarter, and even though he's playing well, he looked like a dude that was pissed off that he was not playing to his standard. Like, just because he knows
that's
better
what
than
it boils
anyone.
down to. And so for somebody that's clipping and being like, Kirk Henderson, meanie McButthead, look at how mean Kirk is once again to my favorite player. Luka was 6 of 17 at one point. That's happened repeatedly. Before this game, he was 36 of 99. The fact that he finished 12 of 25 means he actually started finishing some shots. Congratulations. That's what we expect of the player who's supposed to be the runaway MVP. And he's playing like ass.
Yeah. And the big thing, he only had 1 turnover, 2 assists. And that's the thing, right? That's the thing we talked about last playoffs. We talked about it every time these coaches would double and blitz Luka in the pick and roll. We were like, why would you put 2 on Luka and give these role players more confidence in open space? And then when they would not do that, they would struggle. And that's what the Celtics did. They either played him one-on-one, or they shaded their help to where it wasn't an outright blitz. They would kind of like help from different spots to make it tough and to kind of entice him into more one-on-one play. And I'm assuming, fourth quarter was obviously much better and he took advantage, but like Luka finishing a game with 38 minutes and 2 assists, like,
that's impossible.
When this offense has struggled this season, which is, I mean, teams are not blitzing as much. Our good friend Bobby Caralla I think he said something like he's been blitzed like less than 10 times this season. Like it's a very small number considering how many minutes he's played in 5 games.
Taking their chances. And why are they taking their chances? There's 2 reasons that I'm pretty sure I feel very confident about this.
Yeah, go right into it.
There's this idea that I think is based in history that Luka is not in shape. Luka is in shape right now. Luka does things where he is watching the footwork of defenders, and I honestly think he is overthinking almost all of his attacks. He is missing so many shots from the 10-foot and in range. They're gonna start to go, but he also just needs to fucking attack. He just needs to attack. He gives up layups because he wants to make the fancy pass. And he gets this from both ends from us. And sometimes it's not fair, where we complain about him not making the extra pass because we want him to score. And then we complain about him making the extra pass because the inverse, like we want him to go both. We want both things from him. And sometimes that's not fair, but I think the idea that Luka is not in shape is based in history, but not in reality.
Yeah, and he was 3 of 4 at the rim. Four shots at the rim is okay. He was 2 of 8 in the paint outside the rim, and that's kind of where, since like his second year in the league, he's kind of owned that space. Which is, admittedly, that's not a spot where you can be very efficient. Like the league average in that area, outside the restricted area, but still inside the paint, it's 41%. So. But that's why he's such a great scorer, because he's so good at manipulating that space, using his power, using his size, using his skill, using his touch, that he's traditionally been very good there. And he wasn't good there tonight. I don't think he's been good there this season. And yeah, that feels like the thing is like I've said it. I think I've said it almost after every game, because I mean, he struggled with his shot almost every game. Is like, how long do we use the no preseason, injured during training camp line of reasoning? Because we're 5 games in, we're a week into the season. When does that stop being a viable? I don't know. Like, is it just going to snap, or is it just going to click? Where one of these games he's just going to, have 40 points on 60% shooting? Like, you just kind of feel like you're waiting for it, and it feels like a cop out to just say after all these games he struggles. Well, he's working his way back in because he didn't have a preseason. He barely had a training camp because of his injury, but that's also part of it. Like, you don't want to not ignore that. So it makes it harder to talk about to me, because I don't want to lean on that as a crutch when trying to talk about what's going on, but also we can't be unfair and ignore it. But yeah, you're right. He needs to figure it out. He needs to get things clicking. And I think
he is not attacking enough. He is simply not attacking enough. There is a relentlessness to the Luka that I have seen in my time watching him that is not there right now, because he is hunting for different kinds of shots. He takes, and I'd be curious, this is purely anecdotal, but I was talking about it with one of our listeners, Josh, who goes to the gym with me. And he and I were talking about this. Luka takes it's a 15-footer that's about 2 steps out of the free throw line. Do you know what shot I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He spins into it a lot of the time. And I feel like he hasn't made that damn thing one time. And I feel like he shot it about 10. And there's an element of this where it's like he is so dead set on getting a guy on his back hip because he thinks he can draw the foul, that once he is thinking he's going to draw the foul, whatever happens next is too complicated. A lot of the times he can just score, and he doesn't. And I'm not sure what is going on right now with some of the decision making, because I think it has a lot to do with the single coverage, where his brain and because again, this guy is a basketball savant that will understand the quickness and things that are happening in a way that I could never even speak about, let alone understand. But things are happening to where he is making what should be a straightforward series of decisions too complicated, and he's missing. And he'll figure it out. Of course he'll figure it out. But they had a night off after a really great win against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it feels like they took an enormous step back. And I'm annoyed.
That's fair. No, it's fair to be annoyed. And you said that. I wanted to look at his shot chart. He's had 17 attempts in the restricted area. He's making 70% of them, which is very good.
Great.
He's got 24 mid-range attempts. So he's got more mid-range attempts than he has restricted area attempts.
Not a good shot diet. The end.
No, and especially for him. He's got 35 attempts in the paint outside the restricted area. So most of his shots are still he still has more paint shots than mid-range shots. But like there's a difference between restricted area and then, like you said, that shot near the free throw line, which counts as a paint shot. But that's not an easy. It's not an easy shot. He's 8 of 24 from mid-range, 33%. That's not
awful.
Good.
And what made him, we have one listener, and Harold, who joined our StreamYard. Harold was talking about how good Luka looked in 2019, whatever bubble season was, which I guess was
2020. Yeah, he lived at the rim.
2020.
He was insane. Yeah,
he was insane from the mid-range that year, and so much to the point that it's very clear in hindsight the mid-range shooting in the 2019-20 campaign was an outlier. Not to say he's bad at mid-range shots, but he falls in love with them sometimes to an extent which drives me nuts. I get that he doesn't want to go to the rim, get hammered, get beat on, but you can't shoot like he shot through the majority of 5 games, because again, guys, he finished 12 of 25. He was 6 of 17 at one point. That means he finished 6 of 8 for those of you who can do math.
Right. So for reference, obviously we're in small sample size theater, but last season he was 43.8% on mid-range shots, and he was 54.8% on the paint outside the restricted area shots. He's 40% through 5 games this season. So
that's gonna suss itself out.
That's the area of the floor that why is he struggling so much? Because he's not making the floaters. Like, he's just not that floater range shot, which is his bread and butter. He's not making them. So for whatever reason, we talked about it. Spacing. I don't know, but I think teams are just they're going to let him work one-on-one. And if he's not feeling great because he didn't have a preseason and he's working himself, not saying he's out of shape, but like there's a difference between you don't play a preseason game to playing in a regular season. Like, he's still figuring some things out. That's going to make it look awkward. And it's looked very awkward. And they're going to have to do some, like, this isn't just like a, hey, Luka needs to figure it out. Teams are going to keep playing them like this. Like, the book is starting to get written on, hey,
take your chances.
Let Luke, yeah, right. Let them play one-on-one, and then don't let the role players beat you and see what happens.
But the stupid part about this is it shouldn't be the role players. What role players are we talking about? Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. There should be no beating. This is where the cuteness of what the Mavericks have done offensively, if you want to table the Luka element, okay, and you want to talk about what the Mavericks are doing as a whole, this is where there's an element of what the Mavericks are doing as a whole is pissing me off. They find things that work, and then they're like, you know what? We're not going to do that thing again. They are. Like, have they run very many what's the screen? I'm not a
dribble handoffs.
They've not run very many dribble handoffs. That's one of them. They've also not run the Luka high screen and roll with Lively, where Klay Thompson then goes and screens Lively, and Klay pops out.
Screener, yeah.
They did a couple of times this game. They actually did, but that's the first time we've seen it since the first game.
Yeah, and Klay struggled. You know what? He was 5 of 13. Oof. That's a lot of mid. No, that's not a lot. I mean, 2 of 9 from 3. I think he only made both of his threes.
I mean, the Mavericks were so butt from 3.
Yeah.
And a 33 is actually misleading for how bad they were.
Because I mean, everything happened in the fourth quarter, right? Like,
Luka hit all 3, I think, in the fourth.
Yeah. So I've got another point I want to jump off on, but I don't know. Is it break time?
It should be break time. Okay, all right, we'll break real quick. Lunatics, fans, friends, enemies, consider clicking that old subscribe button if you're here live on the YouTube channel. Though the Pod Maverick YouTube channel is inching towards our season goal of 5,000. We're still over 1,500 people away, but every single person matters to us because we like talking basketball with our friends. Those of you who are listening on the audio stream on your podcast platform of choice, please consider leaving a review. Please consider rating us as well. Also, please just consider telling your Mavs fans, friends about this, because this is a community-based podcast where we want you to participate in our show. I yelled at my friend Fan123 earlier in the YouTube stream, but that's only because he cares as much as we do, which is why he's still hanging out with us. If you want to join our secondary live show, I tend to want to run one of those after every single game. It's a little bit difficult to do sometimes over an 82-game season, but those of you who have hung out with us know we're coming through. We're having, I think I've done three out of 4 so far. I want to make it 4 out of 5 tonight. We will hang out and talk a little Mavs basketball and also get some of our feelings out in the process. That's pretty much the extent of our pitch, though. If you want to hear from me even more, I've been hosting playback rooms where you can watch the Mavericks with some friends. We have about 30, 40, 50 people that join us every night. And it's nice to just watch basketball with friends. So I'm going to post that probably in the podcast as well. But it's also pretty easy to find if you go to my social media. That's the extent of me shilling. I'm going to stop talking for about 3 seconds where Josh and I will insert some ads for those of you on the audio feed. And then we will be right back.
Now, 2 pigeons bemoaning the fact you can stream DirecTV satellite-free.
These humans can stream all the top-rated national news channels on DirecTV, and now with no satellite dish.
This just in. Weather, sports, election coverage. DirecTV has it all, but something is missing. The satellite dish.
What are you doing?
I'm reporting the news. Back to you, Bob.
Here's some news. You're a buffoon.
Stream the top-rated national news channels. No satellite dish. Visit DirecTV.com. Internet required. Top-rated news based on 2023 Nielsen ratings.
Deciding which credit card or loan is right for you is like trying to choose where you want to eat for dinner. Except when you finally get to the restaurant, the menu's riddled with jargon that no average foodie could understand. So at Credit Karma, we keep things simple. We show you personalized recommendations that align with your money goals and help you turn the confusing fine print into terms you can actually understand. And as a cherry on top, we provide a detailed overview for a new card or loan before you apply. That way, we can help you make decisions faster and with more confidence. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
All right. I hope the audio of my wife attempting to wrangle our alligator / dog in the background didn't get picked up too much during the last 30 seconds. She is having a hard time with Halloween.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
And she's just like, I want to play with all the people.
Yeah.
I go, the people coming to our door, I want to be friends with them. It's fucking impossible. Anyway, all right. What else we got? What are your other points that you were hanging your head on?
Okay, so this is something you're gonna have to do some of the heavy lifting because it's just I want to know because obviously like I only watched the fourth quarter and Gafford and Lively basically were already done from the game by then, and I think they combined for they each played 15 minutes and it looks like foul trouble was awful. They had 5 Lively had 5 in 15 minutes, Gafford had 4 in 15 minutes. I noticed, so it's I just want to know what you think. Second half of last season after the trade deadline, we all know the NBA changed how they called games and allowed for a more physical game. And we both talked about during that second half run, during the playoffs, that the Mavericks were one of the teams we felt like that benefited one of the most teams that benefited the most from that change in officiating, because they were like the 2020 Lakers. I think I used the analogy of the Legion of Boom Seattle Seahawks when they won the Super Bowl, their defense, where they did the thing where they're like, okay, Derek, we're going to beat the shit out of you. Call a foul. Like, are you going to call a foul every single time down the floor? We don't think you are. So we're going to physically impose our will onto you. And we don't think the refs are going to call it every single time. And we're just going to beat your ass. And the Mavericks have so many good athletes now. Lively, Gafford, PJ Washington, now Najee Marshall, last season, Derek Jones Jr. They're not doing that anymore. Like they are calling the game, I feel like, how they called the game last season before the All-Star break. Is that a problem? Because they built this team to take advantage of how the game was being called second half of last season in the playoffs. If that doesn't happen, is that a problem?
Yes, but here's the real thing. They're only calling it that way. I don't want to be a refs guy. I spent all of Dirk Nowitzki's career being a refs guy. Luka Doncic shot 4 fucking free throws. Kyrie Irving shot 3. If we're going back to ticky-tack horse shit, everything is a foul call, then the Mavericks need to fucking get a call. I mean, I'll be honest. When I'm watching the other guys, the Livelies, the Gaffords, they committed a lot of stupid fouls tonight. They committed a lot of stupid fouls. Like Juicebox in the chat says DJJ plus Lively plus PJ defense was special. Honestly, man, in the fourth quarter, whenever the refs were forced to swallow the whistles because they weren't going to pull Luka, because some of the fouls on Luka were garbage. They weren't going to pull Luka from the game. The way they called the game in the fourth was how they called the game the entirety of the playoffs and things like that.
And the second half of the regular season.
And so, frankly, this just needs to normalize. It needs to normalize because it's not watchable right now. Like if you're going to do this, like the Mavericks shot 20 free throws, the Rockets shot 27. The disparity's not that bad. But it's
the Rockets had 36 shots at the restricted area. The Mavericks had 24.
Yes,
they were there more often.
That's those two things are weighted, fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's just, it is a problem for the Mavericks if they don't figure this out. I will say that aside, the Mavericks could afford to stop committing stupid fouls.
Yeah, I wonder like how much is it that and how much of it is that other thing. I did hear Jason Kidd doing an interview. I think it was like a day ago or before the Minnesota game, or maybe it was before this game. It was before this game, and he did comment on like, because someone, I think it was Chuck Cooperstein, asked him like, "Hey, like the game is being ref differently than how it was post All-Star break. Like, how do you handle that?" And he kind of acknowledged, like, we hope that stuff evens out, but he did admit, he was like, "We're fouling too much. Like, take all that out, take all the noise about officiating out." He said he was like, we are fouling too much. So
I was talking in the playback stream with Matthew. Matthew is our resident Mavs fans refs guy, like just casually. It's much more funny when you hear him talking about it, Josh. He drives us crazy in the Slack with his typing. When one of the things when he's like, "That's a foul, that's a travel." When he's talking about it live, it's hilarious, and I recommend joining the live stream for it. But one of the, I was going somewhere with this. One of the things with the foul calls that the Mavericks are struggling with right now is against the Rockets in particular in quarters 1 through 3. It took every single Rockets ball handler a single dribble move to put the Dallas Mavericks in rotation. The on-ball guys have to be better with the first action that's coming at them, because if you get put in rotation with 20 seconds left on the shot clock, i.e. what I'm describing, guys, is if the help has to come immediately, you fucked up as a defense. That means that individual people who are supposed to do their jobs aren't doing their jobs within the time frame that is an acceptable thing, because that's part of why the Rockets got 18 offensive rebounds. All these Mavericks are disjointed and they're out of position because they're having to cover for one another. It's every single one of them too. It's not Luka. It's not Kyrie. It's not Clay. It's all of them. And that's what made the fourth quarter so ridiculous, is you're watching Luka stonewall guys. And some of that is the refs allowing physicality to go in a way that they did in the first 3 quarters. But guys, like I talk to I have an 8-year-old. I talk about this all the time with him, where I show him, and granted, NBA clips it's like he's 8. It's not the same thing. But it's like, if you attack a guy's weak side or weak foot or weak hip, and you can get past him in a dribble, you as a defender have failed. And the Mavericks are getting whipped on the first dribble in some instances, and it's driving me nuts.
And this was the concern. We talked about if we're bringing in Klay Thompson, because that means 3 of your 5 closers, main guys that you're not taking off the floor, presumably, are what? Average to below average defenders across the board. Kyrie tries, and when Luka tries, he's definitely above average, but in the aggregate, that's something that another team can exploit. And yeah, I saw a little bit in the Minnesota game in the fourth quarter where Minnesota was like, wait, why are we going after Lively? Why are we going after PJ Washington? Like, everything we run needs to involve those three, Kyrie, Luka, Clay. And they scored like, I don't know, I can't remember, like 2-3 straight possessions. I remember thinking like, uh-oh. But then they kind of figured it out because Lively had a monster defensive game against the Wolves, but he wasn't able to, wasn't able to stay on the floor because they were kind of getting whipped with the fouls. And like you said, like, you get beat when your front line of defense gets beat off the dribble so quickly. Your first line, like, your bigs are getting hung out to dry at the rim. They commit more fouls. Like, yes. I didn't see the first half, but I assume it's that's a big blow by, and then Lively has to go to the rim and a foul's called.
And so let me read you this. You actually shared this with me earlier today, but I think this is pretty important. And I want to provide the caveat where if Luka Doncic is playing well on offense, I think some of this starts to solve itself. But ESPN put the Dallas Mavericks 4th in their power rankings. Tim McMahon wrote the blurb, and it's absolutely hilarious. He says, Klay Thompson shot 45.5% from three-point range on 11 attempts on the Mavs during the Mavs 3-1 start, averaging 19.7 points. Thompson has stated his determination to, quote, get rid of the notion that I'm not the same defender I once was, end quote. And he's also off to a strong start on that end of the court. The Mavericks have, and McMahon fucked this up, or whoever did the editing, because this is actually only through 3 games. The Mavericks have a 112.7 defensive efficiency with Thompson on the court this season, and 101.9 when he is off. That's a massive difference. And what he basically did there, for someone who can't read between the lines, or the audio, or the way I read it doesn't make sense to you, Tim McMahon very politely said that he provided Clay's quote that he thinks he can help the Mavericks be better on defense, while showing that he's actually quite fucking terrible on defense on the Mavericks so far.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because I think I said this in Slack. Like, if Clay's on the floor and their defense is at 112.7 per 100 possessions, that wouldn't be a terrible number. Like, that would probably finish. What did last season? Like if you took that number last season, where would that rank? I'm loading the numbers. Last season, that would have been a top 5 defense. Miami Heat had the 5th best defense last season, 112.7 per 100 possessions allowed. So in the like that actually would be pretty good if they could hold on to it. But it does show like they were playing better with him off the floor. Now again, per possession data right now is not reliable because of how early we are in the season. But this is a challenge. This was not a surprise. Like we knew coming into the season, we were like, how are they going to get around this? And they've done a pretty good job so far. Like honestly, the reason they're 3-2 and they're not 4-1 or 5-0 is because their offense is stunk. And I know that their defense has been compromised at times, but
their
offense is not nearly good enough to
I earnestly believe the offense has stunk by design. Like I really earnestly feel like they're running away from things that work because Jason Kidd is this kind of coach. This is not a complaint. This is a thing I'm pointing out. But for the Mavericks to win 55 games this season, they need to pick up the fucking pace.
Yeah, it's harder to experiment if you want to get if you want to get a top seed in the West because there's no time. There's absolutely no time. We see it tonight. This Houston team, I fucking love this Houston roster, and they were a lottery team last season. And like, man, they got so many dudes, and like, they're not even a team that was really projected to be a majority top 8 team, but they could kick your ass on any given night, like they kind of did tonight to the Mavericks. Like there's just so many teams in the West where you can't take your foot off the gas for a minute or they will send you packing. They'll send you going home. So
and everybody in the chat quite now is like understandably very frustrated at the offense, but I urge you to go listen to the podcast with Adam Mares and Tim Legler from 2 days ago on the All Cities Podcast Network, where they spend about 20 minutes talking about how easy it is for the Mavericks to get shots. They go through and they break down the specifics of why things are working within the Mavericks offense when they work. And that's what I'm getting at right now is I'm saying things can work. Things that are working. They need to find a way. Like they're getting way too cute with stuff too early. Like again, Luka Doncic pick and roll, like his usage is still high, but I'm not seeing near the spam pick and roll shit we've seen in past years. This has been coming because the Mavericks have played poorly, but they were winning anyways. Okay. And so it's like, I part of me thinks we should just kind of close up in a second here and I can get on to the next show, just because it's like, we know what the problems are. We know how they should fix them. They simply need to fix them. The simple Luka play better button like covers like 50% of what they need to do. But it's also like guys rebound, guys play defense with a little more cohesion and awareness, and then we figure some things out. Yeah. I don't know.
Let's run some more dribble handoffs. I want to write that. I'm going to write that story. But it's hard to do that when your 2 centers don't play the whole game because they're in foul trouble and ineffective. So that's when, they schematically on the offensive side, a lot of it is just make shots, but they really need to have a better plan. And I think they've got tape that shows what that plan can be, that when teams are not blitzing Luka, like they need better plan B's and C's than just let Luka and Kyrie do something. And then they do it. Like we've seen them do it. Even this season, we've seen them do it. So it's just a matter of them being more consistent about off-ball stuff for Clay, using Lively and Gafford at the elbow, handling the ball, using them as dribble handoff hooks. It's there. They just got to get to it, and I'm sure they will. We'll see. As we're rounding out, I did want to note there are 2 cool things I noticed, and this is just fourth quarter. One, I thought PJ Washington played a tremendous defensive game in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
He whipped Sengun's ass in the fourth quarter. He played him off the floor. He played him off the floor. The Rockets had to close the game without him because Washington ate him up in the post defensively. Yep. Thought he played a really good defensive game. Would have been nice if he made a couple more shots, although he shot 3 of 6. He just didn't shoot a lot. He had 3 blocks and 3 steals. Like his defense, he's had a really His offense is still weird.
He's been the second best Maverick behind Kyrie through 5 games.
And Lively.
I think he has had Lively's had 2 absolute duds.
Yeah, the Phoenix game and this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
PJ drives me freaking crazy, but it's because I think his consistency range needs to tighten up.
Because his talent, because you see him do this stuff on defense, and you're like, man, if you could just toss in a couple more buckets a game, like you're an elite role player. And he's already approaching that with his defense right now. So PJ, very good on defense, and I think he's been really good on defense all season. The other thing is since Gafford and Lively were ineffective in foul trouble, we saw Najee Marshall small ball center for most of the fourth quarter, and I thought that looked kind of cool. And I think that's something that they need to get back to. Najee, he's a big dude. He is bigger than I remember watching him in New Orleans. Like, you watch a guy 4 games versus, like, I've already watched more Najee Marshall through 5 games now than I watched Najee Marshall last season. So you just don't realize it till you see him up close consistently. He's a big dude, and that's a fun lineup. He had 3 assists. His passing as a small ball 5 with Clay and Kyrie and Luka. They did some stuff with him, and he held his own. He had 2 rebounds, 22 minutes. That's the part that's going to be tough, because even when they went small, Houston kept killing them on the glass. So if you go small with Najee at the 5, I don't know how sustainable it is, because I just don't think that lineup rebounds enough. They're already struggling at times rebounding when they play big ball. That I don't know if Najee is a good enough rebounder to hold up for long stretches. But as a party trick, as something to get back into the game, as something to do when your centers are in foul trouble, I thought that was pretty cool. And I think that's something that they should try to keep incorporating throughout the season.
It was certainly fun to watch. It was a little shocking. I really actually enjoyed Najee's defense in that regard, because when there's not a rim protector, I think it brings out something different in perimeter-based guys. Like, he had a body in him.
Do you think it's like knowing they don't have the safety blanket?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like driving without training wheels?
Mm-hmm. I really do. I mean, that was some of the best defense I've seen Najee play, and it's because there wasn't a defender back there. And it's like, oh, hey, man, I remember this. This is what I did when Zion was back there.
Yeah. So that was cool. I think those were probably 2 of the most positive things to take away.
Well, and we've not, and frankly, in mixed in with all this, I've alluded to it, but Kyrie Irving was why the thing was close. He was awesome. He was breathtaking. And
has he been the best Maverick through 5 games? I think that's
he's
what
been the best Maverick through 5 games.
I think so.
Yeah.
He's shooting absurdly for
and we're wasting it. That's why I'm so mad.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Yeah, he's been awesome.
All right.
24 games, shooting over 50% from 3. That'll do it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to host this secondary show here. We got one gentleman waiting. I'm going to go to a quick break. Those of you who have participated in the show, we have Henry leaving a pair of super chats. Thank you so much, Henry. We always appreciate you. Those of you who'd like to come join and get your takes off, let's hang out at a group therapy for maybe 20, 25 minutes, and then everybody can go to bed. We'll see if anyone at Mavs Moneyball actually turned in stuff that they were supposed to do. Hey, they did. Okay, it's good stuff. Yeah. And we have a gentleman, Michael Harris, who just we're like, hey, Michael, take a breather, calm down on your posting, and he's like, no, I'm going to turn in a bajillion words after every game.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, well, it's
okay.
so
It's fun.
We love it. Yep. Head over to MavsMoneyball.com. We had an outstanding October. We're finishing out right now. We're gonna, if you guys want game coverage following a game, even a bad game, you're gonna get it over at Mavs Moneyball. So, thanks so much for hanging out, and I will be right back. Josh, you're the best. Everybody have a great week. We'll be right back.